Marshall Peak, Chapter 6008, World Creation. An enormous river stretched across the void, its waters fiercely surging, with waves rising and falling one after another. Yang Kai was sitting in a cross-legged position over this enormous river, forming a set of profound hand seals. As his hands moved, the water in the river would cycle through states of agitation and calm. The myriad of Dao strengths would also undulate with the current in the river. It had been several years since Yang Kai returned from the taboo realm. Whenever he recalled his absurd experiences over the past few years, Yang Kai didn't know whether to laugh or cry. On the day, when he finally returned from the taboo realm, all his relatives came to meet him tearfully, complaining about their pain of parting. Soon after, everyone returned to the star boundary together, and after learning of the news of his return, all rejoiced. In the 8,000 years after Yang Kai's disappearance, all their memories about him had been erased, but the moment he returned, all the vanished memories were restored. No one knew what extraordinary power could cause something like this. Only Yang Kai seemed to notice something. After that, Yang Kai was placed under house arrest. He, a mighty expert who had surpassed the open heaven realm, who had reached an unprecedented realm and never seen before, who could call the wind and rain with just the flip of his hand, had actually been placed under house arrest. The ones who put him under house arrest were none other than Yang Yingfeng and Dong Suzhu. His wives were also under house arrest like him. According to his parents, they were growing old. It was already a miracle that they had been able to give birth to Yang Shui in the past, but there was no way for them to have any more children. So, the responsibility of continuing the Yang family's bloodline fell squarely on Yang Kai's shoulders. The old couple didn't make any outrageous demands, just that he should father as many children as the number of wives he had. So, each of his wives should give birth to at least one child. When this condition had been fulfilled, they would release them. In terms of strength, his parents were naturally not Yang Kai's opponents and he could easily escape if he really wanted to. However, his parents had also said that if their unfilial son dared to disobey them this time, they would bash their heads against high heaven peak until they died. Yang Kai was left with no choice. According to his parents, Yang Kai had been cultivating for many years and had explored many worlds, big and small. He had been constantly on the move. But now that the world was at peace and his cultivation had already reached the limit, there was nothing he needed to worry about in this world. As such, he should pay attention to continuing the Yang family's bloodline. Helpless, Yang Kai, Su Yan, Yu Rumeng, and the others were locked up on a lone peak in High Heaven Palace. It wasn't until several years later that Yang Kai walked out of the mountain peak with a tired look on his face, his eyes sunken and his face pale. Right behind him was a large group of beautiful women with big bellies. Yang Yingfeng and Dong Suzhu were overjoyed. As the saying went, people need to be pushed to get results. In the past, they had tried to make Yang Kai continue their bloodline, but he had always brushed them off with all kinds of excuses. If they had known it would be this simple, they would have put him under house arrest long ago. After having completed this vital mission, Yang Kai finally had time to catch up with his old friends. Mi Jing Luen and the others were naturally aware of what was going on with Yang Kai over these past few years, so they could not help but tease him when they finally met up. Soon, Yang Kai learned about the current situation of the human race from the other Ninth Order masters. With the end of the war more than 8,000 years ago, the Black Ink clan was completely wiped out, and the universe had finally achieved a state of peace. Now, the human race were the sole rulers of the world. Be that as it may, the scars of countless years of war were difficult to erase. The 3,000 worlds used to be extremely prosperous, but now, apart from those in High Heaven territory and Myriad Monsters territory, the universe worlds and the rest of great territories had either been completely corrupted by Black Ink strength or had long since been destroyed. It could be said that the habitable space for the human race had been greatly reduced. Originally, traces of human activity could be seen in every great territory, but now, all the surviving humans were gathered in High Heaven territory and Myriad Monsters territory, with more than 90% of them living in the latter. In fact, because of the scarcity of cultivation resources, the two open heaven realm cradles, the star boundary and Myriad Monsters world, had essentially been evacuated and cordoned off. The human race didn't dare let too many people live in these two open heaven realm cradles, lest too many good seedlings were born and there were no resources to nurture them. If the number of people suitable for cultivation increased, but there were no resources for them to cultivate with, fights over cultivation resources would definitely break out, which would ultimately lead to chaos. Currently, the population living on the star-boundary myriad monsters world was extremely small, and if one wanted to enter these two open heaven realm cradles, they would need to undergo a rigorous series of tests and selections. This was the current state of the human race. They had won the war, but it was a Pyrrhic victory. Nonetheless, they could not do anything about it. The Black Ink clan had simply done too much damage to the 3,000 worlds. In addition, the human race didn't have the means to repair these corrupted universe worlds. If no solution was found, the human race would have many dark days ahead of them. Fortunately, Yang Kai had returned from the taboo realm, and at this moment, he was repairing a universe world. This was an uninhabited great territory. Perhaps this great territory once used to be bustling with human activity, with its universe worlds being rich and prosperous. However, after the Black Ink clan occupation, all that was left was deathly silence, and all the universe worlds had died. The massive space-time river stretched across the void, with universe worlds floating up and down in the river, Dao's strengths fluctuating rhythmically. The Black Ink strength that had corrupted these universe worlds was quickly stripped away and then sent into the profound source gate by Yang Kai to be sealed. After that, Yang Kai evolved Yin and Yang, then harmonized the 5 elements, which gave birth to the 10,000 grand Daos. The flow of time in the space-time river was different from the outside world, and with Yang Kai's current cultivation, this flow rate had reached an extremely exaggerated degree. Perhaps 1,000 years were elapsing inside the river for each breath that passed in the outside world. The lifeless universe world slowly regained its vitality in the space-time river. Suddenly, a small figure stepped out and walked over to Yang Kai's side before pursing his lips in frustration. "It's empty outside, there's nothing here, so boring." Yang Kai fiercely turned to him and shot him a glare. "It's all your fault." The figure immediately tried to explain. "What does Mo's evil deeds have to do with this little 11? The small figure standing next to Yang Kai at this moment was none other than Little 11, or rather, it was the same person Yang Kai had seen in the primordial world's Dawn City. 8,000 years ago, Yang Kai defeated Mo and sealed it with the profound source gate. However, as the most ancient being in this universe, even Yang Kai was unable to completely destroy Mo. After all, Black Ink's strength was a power born at the beginning of the universe. As long as the universe still existed, and as long as there was darkness in living beings, Black Ink's strength would never be extinguished. However, Yang Kai spent some effort to extract the consciousness born from this power from the profound source gate. This consciousness was Little 11, who was standing beside him. Strictly speaking, Mo was Little 11, but these two were different. In other words, Little 11 was not making excuses, he was indeed not Mo. During the early ancient era, he had fought alongside the 10 martial ancestors to protect the human race. Only Mu had noticed the problem in Mo at the time. She had set up the primordial heaven source grand restriction and sealed Mo before its consciousness was completely corrupted. Afterwards, under Mu's secret arrangements, Mo's source was divided into 3,000 pieces and sealed in different universe worlds while Mu kept Mo's consciousness by her side to guard him. Unlike what Mu did, the current Little 11 was not some weak child in Dawn City who did not even have the strength to strangle a chicken. Otherwise, he would not have been able to wander the void alone. Looking at the surging river stretching across the void before him, Little 11 couldn't help wondering, speaking of which, what realm are you in now? Little 11 was completely unaware of the fact that Yang Kai was trapped in the taboo realm, as Mo was sealed by Yang Kai after his defeat, and Little 11 was freed just a few days ago. However, Little Elven was surprised to discover that Yang Kai's strength was far greater than the last time Mo fought with him. It seemed to have gone beyond the scope of the open heaven realm. Little 11 reckoned that even if Mo had been at his peak, he would still be no match for the current Yang Kai. "You're supposed to be a master in the creation realm, can't you see through my cultivation?" Yang Kai asked instead of answering. Little 11 explained, shaking his head, that's a false claim. Mo never reached the creation realm. He could at most be described as a pseudo-creation realm master. The main reason Mo was able to create the Black Ink clan is because of the unique properties of Black Ink strength, not because Mo had reached the necessary realm. But you're different. Your current cultivation has indeed exceeded the open heaven realm, so I'm very curious about what realm you've reached. Yang Kai had already noticed that there was something wrong with Mo's creation realm a long time ago, but at that time, his strength and vision were simply insufficient. As such, he was unable to determine anything. Now that Little 11 had personally admitted it, Yang Kai wasn't too surprised. My realm, Yang Kai muttered before shaking his head, no one has reached this realm before, so I don't know what it should be called. Saying so, he quickly changed his hand's seals before raising them towards the space-time river, making a grabbing motion. The next moment, the enormous river was gripped by Yang Kai, who gently shook it and shouted, "Go!" Immediately after, tiny grains of sand were flung out from the space-time river one after another and began rapidly expanding. Surprisingly, these grains were universe worlds. These universe worlds were the remaining universe worlds of this great territory. Originally, they had been corrupted by Black Ink strength and were devoid of any life. Some were even destroyed by the Black Ink clan's resource exploitation. But now, all these universe worlds had completely changed. Although there were no sentient beings on them, each of these universe worlds looked completely new, without a trace of Black Ink strength left on them. The dilapidated universe worlds had been repaired and were filled with perfect grand chaos. Furthermore, each of these universe worlds was lush and green, full of life and vigor. These universe worlds were already teeming with vitality, so they would give birth to their first life forms in just a few years. Even with Little 11's vast experience, he was still shocked by this amazing sight. The universe worlds were not artifacts, nor were they pieces of furniture. They were not something that could be repaired so easily. However, these devastated universe worlds had been brought back to life by Yang Kai. This was not something a normal human could do. Creating something out of nothing, a divine ability to create a new world, truly amazing. Looking at the universe worlds flying out into the void and slowly coming to a stop at certain spots, Little 11 couldn't help but sigh with emotion. He felt that his sins had been significantly reduced. Hearing this, Yang Kai raised his brow as a smile flashed on his face. Then let's call it the world creation realm. Huh? Little 11 was stunned, but quickly recovered and muttered, the world creation realm, it's quite appropriate. In the past, the universe furnace created all worlds, but now, Yang Kai's spacetime river was also able to create universe worlds. The spacetime river itself was modeled after the infinite river inside the universe furnace, and the infinite river was the foundation of the entire universe furnace. All the universe worlds in this universe had been created by the infinite river. Yang Kai felt that his own spacetime river would reach the level of the infinite river sooner or later. Let's go to the next place. Yang Kai stood up and rushed towards the adjacent great territory, with Little 11 following closely behind him. Marshall Peak, Chapter 6009, The Future. Every great territory Yang Kai passed though had its once dead universe worlds now radiating with new vitality. By the time Yang Kai was finished restoring all the great territories in the 3,000 worlds, 1,000 years had already passed. Yang Kai then spent another 1,000 years doing the same thing to the universe worlds in the Black Ink battlefield. After 2,000 years, the entire 3,000 worlds and even the Black Ink battlefield were no longer desolate and barren as they had been in the past. They were once again brimming with endless vitality. In time, these universe worlds would definitely be able to produce new cultivation resources, and the increasing number of humans would slowly become the masters of these universe worlds. Void World was originally Yang Kai's small universe, the crystallization of his life's cultivation, his very foundation, but now, he had stripped away his small universe from himself and turned it into a real universe world, placing it in high heaven territory, next to the star boundary. He did this after he broke through the shackles of the open heaven realm and advanced to the world creation realm. It was quite an incredible feat upon learning of this. all the Ninth Order masters were totally shocked, but considering that it was Yang Kai's handiwork, they were able to accept it. After all, he was the only world creation realm master in the history of the human race, so any kind of absurd and impossible feat suddenly became perfectly normal for him. At this moment, somewhere on Void World, Yang Kai looked at a child in front of him and exhorted in a serious manner, "I'll leave little 11 in your care. If there are any abnormalities, seal him immediately. I will deal with him when I return." Although the child did not look very old, he spoke in a steady voice like an elder. "Understood, big brother." This child's appearance bore some resemblance to Fang Tianci. As a matter of fact, he was none other than Fang Tianci. After Yang Kai used the 3-self-source reconstitution art to advance to the Ninth Order Open Heaven realm, Fang Tianci and Thunder Shadow lost their physical bodies, but their consciousnesses remained in Yang Kai's knowledge sea, accompanying him for many years. Because of the uniqueness of the 3-self-source reconstitution art, while they were Yang Kai's soul clones, they were also independent entities. Over the years, while Yang Kai was repairing the universe worlds, he had also been thinking about how to bring Fang Tianci and Thunder Shadow back to the world of the living. He couldn't possibly allow them to remain in his knowledge sea forever without a flesh body. Reincarnation was certainly a good choice, but in that case, they would most likely lose their original memories and become another unfamiliar soul. After all, it was not the same as when he had cast his secret technique, and left many seals on his soul clones, ensuring that his soul clones would grow aware of their mission and memories at the right time. Finally, when Yang Kai decided to strip off his small universe, he was struck with an indigenous idea. That was to integrate Void World Source into Fang Tianci and Thunder Shadow, allowing them to reincarnate along with the world itself. This way, not only would they be able to retain their original memories, but they would also become the masters of Void World. From then on, they would share the same fate as Void World. If one suffered, all suffered, and if one prospered, all prospered. So long as Void World was not destroyed, they would be immortal. Yang Kai's small universe's foundation was extremely strong, and now that they had become this universe world's masters, it would be easier for them to progress in the future. It was easy to foresee that the 3,000 worlds would have 2 more top masters in the near future. Yang Kai had also left little 11 here to be watched over by Fang Tianci and Thunder Shadow, as it would be grossly inconvenient for him to bring little 11 along for the rest of his journey. After the child Fang Tianci responded, a black kitten sitting on his shoulder also nodded and spoke like a human, "Meow. Big brother, don't worry, if there's anything wrong with this brat, second brother and I will beat him to death." A look of anguish and frustration appeared on little 11's face as he rebuked, "Don't make me sound like some wicked demon, at least show some basic respect to a senior like me." The kitten immediately let out a snort. "Then, I'll take my leave," Yang Kai nodded before soaring into the sky. The trio's gazes followed after him until Yang Kai finally disappeared from their sight. A moment later, the child, Fang Tianci, and the kitten, Thunder Shadow, stared at little 11 together, causing him to frown. "What do you want?" The kitten shouted. "Let's beat him up, meow." Having said so, his figure left afterimages as he pounced at little 11's face, while his pair of cat claws swiped furiously, leaving multiple afterimages. Little 11 cried in surprise, and just as he was about to dodge, the child, Fang Tianci, threw him on the ground. A moment later, 2 humans and a kitten were lying on the ground with their faces black and blue. Thunder Shadow gasped for breath as he stated, "I've wanted to beat you up for a long time now." Satisfying. The child Fang Tianci did not fare any better. His nose was bleeding, but there was a content smile on his face. Little 11's face was covered in claw marks. He was undoubtedly much stronger than these 2, but this was Void World, and the child Fang Tianci and Thunder Shadow were the masters of this place. Little 11 was just asking for trouble by being hostile to them while within the bounds of this universe world. Thus, their fight ultimately ended in both sides being defeated and wounded. Nonetheless, little 11 stubbornly declared, "Once I recover, I'll deal with you too." Outside Void World, when Yang Kai arrived in the void, what he saw next took him aback. because there were many familiar faces waiting. Putting aside the group of women led by Su Yan, Yu Ru Meng, and the others, many of the Ninth Order masters were also here. How did my whereabouts get leaked? Yang Kai secretly reflected for a moment, wondering how he gave himself away. All he could say was that his wives understood him too well. Are you planning on going on a long journey? Old ancestor Xiao Xiao looked at him and asked. Yang Kai nodded his affirmation. I made a promise to someone. I have to at least try to save him. Inside the taboo realm, Chongjiu was not lying when he said to the many supreme masters that Yang Kai vowed to save him. Yang Kai had indeed sent him a divine sense transmission just before he left, declaring as much. Chongjiu had helped Yang Kai quite a bit during his 8,000 years in the taboo realm. Furthermore, the two of them shared the same ideals. If possible, Yang Kai wanted to rescue him from the taboo realm, despite the fact that he had no idea where Chongjiu's universe was. This would probably take a lot of time and effort to find, and there was no guarantee his trip would bear any results. Having fallen into the taboo realm, Chongjiu's world had forgotten about him a long time ago. Even if Yang Kai found his home, he might not be able to discover any traces of Chongjiu's existence. However, as the saying goes, put forward your best, and leave the rest to the heavens. I also want to find a way to overcome the shackles of the open heaven realm method. The open heaven realm method that the human race was currently cultivating was comprehended by the 10 martial ancestors from the world tree and passed down through the ages. The open heaven realm method allowed the human race to gain a foothold in this world and gave them a chance to become the overlords of this universe, but in the end, this cultivation method was flawed. All cultivators who ascended to the open heaven realm had innate limits imposed on them. Such a cultivation system was obviously imperfect. In the taboo realm, Yang Kai had come into contact with many supreme masters from different universes. Each of them had a different cultivation method, but very few of their methods had such obvious shackles as the open heaven realm. As the popular adage goes, stones from other hills may be used to polish one's own jade. So, Yang Kai's purpose of venturing out to explore was firstly to find traces of Chongjiu, and secondly, to study the cultivation systems of other places to see if he could make use of them to improve the open heaven realm method. Since the human race was now thriving, and countless universe worlds had been restored, even the originally desolate and dilapidated black ink battlefield had regained its vitality. The humans no longer needed to worry about living space and cultivation resources. Yang Kai felt that it was time to shift his attention to future issues. What's more, there was not just his universe in the vast and endless void. Although he had now reached the world creation realm, no one could say with absolute certainty that there were not any existences stronger than him out there. If one day a master from another universe came to invade, their side must have enough strength to protect themselves. This was also a form of preparation for the rainy days. If you can find such a thing, could we break through to the world creation realm? Xiang Shan asked. Probably not, Yang Kai shook his head. He had experienced breaking through to the world creation realm firsthand, so he knew the method to do so and understood it was not something that could be achieved by solving the shackles of the open heaven method realm. Rather, this breakthrough was more about opportunities, luck, and several other conditions. The ideal situation is to allow the current human race to advance through the open heaven realm without being affected by their innate shackles first. Originally, a cultivator who directly ascended to the third order open heaven realm would have an upper limit of the fifth order, but if Yang Kai found a solution to this flaw, then a third order master would not only be able to reach the sixth order in the future, but he would also be able to cultivate to the limit of what he could achieve, perhaps even reaching the ninth order one day. In that case, the human race, with the help of 2 open heaven realm cradles, would be able to give birth to even more 8th order and 9th order masters. If a 9th order master wanted to break through to the world creation realm, they would first need to study the 10,000 Grand Daos. When his or her mastery of the Grand Daos had reached a certain level, they would finally be able to touch the taboo of this world. Finally, if that person could break the restriction of the taboo realm, they would then advance to the world creation realm. Yang Kai had already traversed this path, so if the 9th order masters took this path again in the future, it would be a bit easier and more relaxed than when he had first ventured onto it. That's not a bad idea, Mi Jingluan nodded his acknowledgement. Then I wish you all the best, but we won't be able to provide much help in this matter. You can only count on yourself. With Yang Kai confirming the existence of the world creation realm, the Ninth Order Masters were all diligently cultivating and studying the mysteries of various grand Daos. Furthermore, with Yang Kai's current cultivation, they would not be able to provide any support to him even if they accompanied him. Yang Kai nodded before turning to his wives. Yu Rumeng stated with a snort, "You can forget about leaving us behind this time." Although the other women didn't say anything, their determined expressions were speaking for themselves. Yang Kai smiled, then, "Let's go together." The group of women immediately broke into cheers. They were obviously overjoyed as they had not expected Yang Kai to agree so easily. Immediately, the group of women gathered around Yang Kai, chatting and laughing. Old tree. Yang Kai suddenly called out to the void, "Let's go." In response to his call, the world tree's illusory phantom appeared in everyone's field of vision. The towering giant tree was no longer lifeless as it used to be, rather, it was lush and brimming with vitality. Not only that, but countless world fruits were also hanging from its branches. In the past, Yang Kai had borrowed the world tree's power to travel to the grand ancient ruins boundary from the edge of the universe. This made the old tree consume too much energy and it fell into deep slumber. Only when Yang Kai returned after reaching the world creation realm and began using his spacetime river to repair the universe worlds in the various great territories did the old tree slowly wake from his slumber. The world tree was closely connected to the universe worlds in the 3,000 worlds. Everyone's rise and fall was connected with each other. When the Black Ink clan occupied the 3,000 worlds, the world tree was shrouded in a miasma of gray energy for many years, which left it in a desolate state. As the universe worlds died one after another, the fruits hanging on its branches also began to wither and fall. This caused the old tree to shrivel and grow older. It had to be brought to notice that these world fruits were the embodiments of the vitality of the various universe worlds. If the universe worlds were alive, their corresponding fruits were fresh and alive. If the universe worlds died, their corresponding fruits withered and fell. Apart from the countless universe worlds Yang Kai had repaired over the past few thousand years, he had also placed the 3,000 universe worlds that Mu had left behind in her spacetime river in the various great territories. Not only that, Yang Kai had also restored the universe worlds on the Black Ink battlefield. In light of this, the old tree's vitality had significantly increased, and the number of fruits hanging from it was more than twice of when it was at its prior peak. In the past, it was impossible for the old tree to manifest its figure outside the grand ancient ruins boundary, but now, it could easily do so. Its thick trunk might give off the appearance of an old tree, but it bore no marks to show its age, rather, it seemed much younger than before. It could be said that ever since Yang Kai began repairing the universe worlds, the old tree's days had become more and more comfortable. Old Tree smiled cheerfully at Yang Kai as it stretched out a branch which wrapped around Yang Kai and the various women, before it gradually started glowing green. By the time the glow faded away, Yang Kai and the others had disappeared. In the grand ancient ruins boundary, when Yang Kai and the others reappeared, the old tree gently withdrew its branches wrapped around them, and then sent over 10 seedlings, world tree clones, to Yang Kai with another branch. Be careful on your journey, old tree advised before prompting its strength, sending Yang Kai and the others out of grand ancient ruins boundary. When they reappeared, they were already standing on the edge of the Black Ink battlefield. Yang Kai carefully put away the 10 seedlings as they were necessary for his return journey. This would surely be a long and arduous journey, so without the guidance of Old Tree, even a world creation realm master like him might get lost in the endless void. Drawing on his experience the last time he returned from distant lands, Yang Kai had Old Tree prepare some seedlings in advance. This way, when he ventured deep into the vast, endless void, he could plant the seedlings on some universe worlds he found and use them to contact the old tree. Furthermore, this would also help in strengthening the old tree's foundation, because the universe worlds with world tree clones planted on them would be included into the old tree's teleportation range. All the universe worlds within this range would be imprinted onto Old Tree's body, manifesting in the form of world fruits. In all likelihood, the World Tree's teleportation range would increase with Yang Kai's exploration. Perhaps after Yang Kai found a new universe, he would be able to connect it to the 3,000 worlds and travel freely between them. Yang Kai summoned a warship, whereupon everyone gathered in the cabin. "Husband, which way should we go?" "Let's go this way." "All right then, sit tight." "Right, if we're all traveling outside, what about our children? Their grandfather and grandmother are looking after them, there's no need to worry. Also, it's not like they are kids anymore. Father and mother must be very happy with so many grandsons and granddaughters. It's really envious. But they've gotten old, will they be able to look after them? Their uncle and auntie are also looking after them. That brat Yang Xiao, I've only seen him a few times over the years. Pang. Hey, if you want to talk, just talk. Why are you closing the door? I don't care. Big sister has already given birth to 2, but I've only given birth to 1, I want to have another kid too. Husband, you can't be unfair. This isn't something I can decide, don't tear my clothes, let's talk it out. The end. Marshall Peak, Chapter 6010, Children. Yang Ji. Yang Su. Get back here. A man scolded as a pair of dragon and phoenix teleported away. The 2 children, looking to be around 12, giggled as they disappeared. Meanwhile, the man slumped his shoulders in exhaustion. A beautiful woman with luscious lips and phoenix-like eyes appeared from behind him as she sighed. Yang Xiao, why didn't you just trap them within your domain? She was none other than Yang Shui, Yang Kai's sister. You think I didn't want to do that? How in the world did these 2 monsters get born? They sensed it before I could even use time principles and escaped. These twins are such a headache. Even adoptive father has a hard time dealing with them. Yang Xiao lamented, tasked with taking care of them while his adoptive father was having another one of his honeymoons. As their uncle, you should already know how capable they are. Their dragon and phoenix bloodlines are much purer than others. If they could manage to use it to suppress you, that would be a good laugh. Yang Shui teased as she patted him on his head. Yang Xiao felt as though a headache was rushing in. In fact, he could have done something about those 2 if he used a lot more of his strength. It was just, these children were too sly. To be more accurate, Yang Su was the cunning one and Yang Ji was the mischievous mastermind. Yang Su would always follow her brother's wishes, and if that meant pranks, that would be. He could not use his full strength because within the compound they were in, there were other children as well. These twins half-siblings. A large number of which were still young and still sleeping. Even when he scolded the 2, he had to keep his voice down. If they all woke up and started crying, all hell would truly break loose. Since both the twins and him could not make a scene, what else could he realistically do? Yang Xiao signed once again and complained. Very funny. Well, not like the world can cause them any issues if they go out and run around. Those 2 schemers just so happen to choose the best time to run away when their grandparents are gone. Yang Shui chuckled, they do resemble you when you were young. Guess that's what it means to be a young dragon? Well, I guess it's best if we tell the others about their escape. What do you mean, resemble me when I was young? I was never that naughty. Yang Xiao quipped, snorting at the idea. But, aren't you going to go after them? If I go, who is going to deal with the aftermath of when all the children wake up? Yang Shui rolls her eyes at the obvious problem they faced. The 2 sighed as they stared out to the sky where those twins ran off to. Yay! We finally got out. Yang Ji, in the form of a small golden phoenix, cheered. He looked to his sister to see her checking on the item they took from their uncle. Yang Su, what did you get? Yang Ji asked, curious as to what that orb was. It was completely black, as though light did not reflect from it. Rather, It seemed as though light itself got absorbed by it to never return. Big brother, I don't really know. But, I think we can ask Uncle Little 11 about it. Out of everyone, he is the only one we can trust. The rest of them will turn us in and force us back home. Yang Su thought for a while before replying. She had already turned to head towards where Little 11 was. Yang Su nodded and they soon, together, manipulated space principles to instantly close the distance to their destination. Little 11, Fang Tian's Ci and Thunder's Shadow were living quite a distance away from any major cities. In fact, the place they settled on within Void World had been labeled as a restricted zone. Although the whole Black Ink clan mess had been dealt with, there was too much bad blood that could not be washed away. Even if Yang Kai had pardoned Little 11 for his actions, that was not the case for the rest of the world. Even so, the wish of Mu needed to be honored, and Little 11 had to have a chance at normalcy. The best they could do was to keep him out of harm from others who might try to take revenge by setting up this restricted zone. It was not so much that Little 11 could not go out. Rather, it was a restricted zone where he would be safe if inside. Nevertheless, to atone for his mistake as MO, he rather stayed inside. Fang Tian's Ci and Thunder's Shadow, who were tasked to watch over Little 11, naturally stayed by his side. Though they were his observers, after growing up together, they had become more or less friends. The occasional fist or claw exchange still happens, but overall, they were close. Over the years, Yang Kai had visited them in their homes. Sometimes, he would even bring his children here to shave off some of the trio's boredom. It was on these trips that Yang Su and Yang Ji got to know of their uncles. It was also from these trips that they memorized the location and route. When kilometers outside of the restricted zone, Yang Ji raised his arm to stop his sister. He looked around and checked his surroundings, scrutinizing every detail. Phew. Looks like no one has caught up to us yet. Yang Ji smiled and said. Big brother, I don't think anyone would look for us out here. If they wanted to catch us, they would have waited for us inside. Yang Su said, giving him a side eye. No. We have to play it safe. Look, before we even get close, we need to avoid Uncle Fang Tian's Ci and Uncle Thunder Shadow's divine sense, right? If they catch on to us, then we'll immediately be sent back. Yang Ji said, convinced that would happen. Then what should we do? I'm pretty sure that their divine sense encompasses the whole restricted zone. I doubt we would be able to sneak past them. Yang Su asked, not understanding her brother's thoughts. Before I answer that, let me ask you, do you think both of us are faster than them? Yang Ji asked, already knowing the answer. If we work together, maybe? We've never really seen them use their full powers before, so I doubt we can beat them in terms of speed. Uncle Fang Tian's Ci is also proficient in the Tao of space. If we were to compare who had better control, him or us, I doubt we would win, Yang Su said while looking at her small white fist clenching and opening. You're right. Actually, no matter how I see it, I don't think we'll be able to beat either of them. Even Uncle Thunder's Shadow is ridiculously fast. So, what we need to do is to lure them away. The stratagem known as luring the tiger away from the mountain. Yang Ji said as he puffed up his chest and beat it. The little boy seemed to have thought that he seemed impressive, but his sister had already thought of this. That's far easier said than done. How are we supposed to lure them away? If one leaves, the other will remain. Yang Su shook her head, believing this to be unfeasible. Yang Ji placed his index finger on her lips and smirked. There's where you are wrong, my dear sister. You are forgetting that I have a storage ring with me. Yang Ji said, as though every little detail had already been thought up. Yang Su stood silent and just decided to go with the flow. Marshall Peak, Chapter 6011, Trapped. Within the restricted zone, a man, a black panther and a little boy, sat around a circular table. It was their usual gathering time, where they would enjoy the simplicities in life. Treats and banters were always abound during these gatherings, gathered at the center for whoever wants to take them. Hey, the communication artifact had lit up. What did it say? The little boy asked in wonder. It was obvious that something must have happened for the usual stoic man to suddenly sigh. Fang Tianxi sighed again. It's Big Brother's children. 2 of them seem to have escaped from home while their parents are on a honeymoon. Thunder's shadow tilted his head. Wait. They are going on a honeymoon again? Fang Tianxi scratched his face. With so many wives, Big Brother does have it rough. Besides, they are most likely not just playing around. They are most likely looking around for materials to build the artifact Big Brother wants. The one he is going to use for that long voyage? Little 11 asked, while in deep thought. Yeah. The trip definitely won't be easy. But, not like there's much we can do about it. Judging from the description of those people he had to deal with, and the taboo realm, it's best to prepare. Fang Tianxi added. He considered joining his big brother, but his priority was to remain by little 11's side. At the same time, all 3 of them would feel uneasy if they all left the 3,000 worlds. Thus, at one of their gatherings, they had already discussed and decided Fang Tianxi and Thunder's Shadow would be staying to guard the 3,000 worlds just in case. Naturally, little 11 was also present at the scene during these discussions. He had made the active decision to remain here, as this was Mu's final resting place. It was also the least he could do for terrorizing the 3,000 worlds for so long. At this time, all 3 sensed 2 familiar auras. They all immediately looked at each other and 2 pairs of eyes fell on Fang Tianxi. All right. I'll go. Fang Tianxi stood up and leaped, disappearing in an instant. Little 11 and Thunder Shadow both shrugged. They both nodded, as though it was the expected outcome. After all, little 11 needed to stay within the restricted zone. As for Thunder Shadow, although he was fast, he by no means could hope to beat his second brother. It was naturally by no means that they just wanted to watch the show. Certainly not. Yang Ji and Yang Su could both sense a disturbance in space. They immediately threw out one of the artifacts that Yang Ji had brought with him. It was an array plate. The array plate landed on the space that started to ripple, and it immediately activated. The area it captured was so large that it encompassed at least 10 kilometers. Naturally, that meant whoever was going to appear and the 2 children would get caught up in this trap at the same time. Yang Ji immediately grabbed hold of Yang Su's hand, and they flew. He took out a token and they immediately escaped from the array. The array plate was made specially to contain whatever was inside. However, it was far from simple. It was made by Grandmaster Ma Fan and Yang Kai. This was a gift to the twins, whereby they would be able to train in. It would create an independent space, whereby the twins would be able to go through different illusionary environments. There were places with sweltering lava pools, there were canyons with astral winds, there were caves of freezing ice. Regardless, even till now, the 2 had not cleared all regions. Still, this array plate functioned as both a training ground and a means of protection. They could trap their enemies inside and leave them there while they escaped. As for the 2, they naturally had a token to escape the array plate. When Yang Ji and Yang Su got out, they looked at each other. They both knew that with Fang Tianxi's abilities, escaping this array was only a matter of time. Still, they could not help but smile since they've trapped him. They both gave each other a high five and Yang Ji said, "Okay. That's one down. I don't think Uncle Thunder's shadow will come out anytime soon though. So, we need to just continue onwards. Let's do this as planned. We need to get past the restriction array first." "Okay." Yang Su nodded and took out another token. This time, it was a token for the restriction array. In general, this was a special identification token. It could be for the various arrays around Void World. Naturally, this restriction array was no exception, since most of the Yang family would come here from time to time. The two children took out their identification token and placed it against the restriction array. The typically transparent dome suddenly had some blue hue to it. A small hole soon appeared and it quickly enlarged till the side of 3 men. The two children went in with little regard for the array plate they left behind. The path to the center was straightforward. In fact, a small path within this dense forest would light up in front of them to guide them. This path was not real. It was an illusion created with some board modification made by Little 11. The path was created such that glowing rectangles were painted on the ground. Little 11 even took the effort to make them always perfectly contour the ground, to make it seem as though the ground had been painted over. Any shrubs protruding would be circled, as though they should be watched out for. Yang Ji and Yang Su did not understand how such a thing was made, but that was just what made Uncle 11 more impressive in their hearts. The two continue forward as guided by the path. To say the scenery here was picturesque would be an understatement. With how much time they had, Fang Tian Ci, Thunder's Shadow and Little 11 would decorate their surroundings. It was not an exaggeration to say that everything here had been made. Since, regardless if a blade of grass or dirt had been here, they would have been moved or replaced by any of the three at some point in time. In fact, a common topic of their discussions, if not about cultivation and news, was about their place. Looking at such sites again, with certain mountains having changed location and certain trees being replaced by another breed, Yang Ji and Yang Su had their gazes taken. However, as they moved closer to the center, they remembered what they needed to do and they ceased getting distracted. There, they saw a black panther and a little boy, who looked to be around their age, who they call Uncle. Marshall Peak, Chapter 60-12, Leaving the Restricted Zone. When the twins could be spotted, the two on the table just minded their own business. They had already sensed them before they entered. Naturally, their presence came as no surprise. Thunder's Shadow even lazily opened one of his eyes to peek, almost intent on not doing anything. As for Little 11, he waved at the twins to welcome them over. For him, who had always been close to the two, this was a great time to catch up. Yang Ji could not help but look at Yang Su before turning his head back at the two by the table. He was a little taken aback by Thunder's Shadow's nonchalance. He had imagined they needed to do something to stop their capture. However, it turned out that nothing really needed to be done. As for Yang Su, she half predicted this outcome. She never believed that Fang Tian Ci had any true intention of catching up. In fact, she wanted to question her brother, why he had to go this far. Was it not more entertaining to just play along? Seeing that Yang Ji was not planning to move, Yang Su took the initiative to take his hand and bring him forward. The two slowly walked up to the table, where Little 11 asked, "Hey, what are you two doing here?" Thunder's Shadow seemed to completely ignore these two. Instead, his attention was fully focused on the outside, as though he was waiting for Fang Tian Ci to get out of his predicament. Yang Su was the one who answered. "We got this from back home. We were wondering what this is." Yang Ji immediately took the initiative to take out the black orb. His hands were still a little shaky due to nervousness. The moment Little 11 saw the orb, his eyes lit up. He immediately took it into his small hands and smirked. He asked, "Do you have any guess as to what this is?" The twins looked at each other and then back at him to only shake their heads. "If we knew, why would we need to come and look for you?" Little 11's smile widened, as though he had one. He moved his arms around the two, and whispered, "This is a really fun toy that you've brought. I can't believe that you've managed to get a hold of this." The twins' eyes brightened with expectation. They could not wait for him to tell them already. However, before they could push Little 11 for an answer, he pushed the topic aside to further agitate them. "Okay, how about we deal with this later? For now, let's get those two killjoys out of the picture first." Once he said that, the space around him seemed to darken. Even Thunder's Shadow was alarmed by this development. Before Thunder's Shadow could act, his body was engulfed in darkness. sticky darkness that he felt his limbs could not maneuver through. He raged, annoyed that this prankster got the best of him. When did you? Damn it. A playful voice could be heard from above. You don't have to get so mad. You've done worse to me and we are all still such best of friends, no? I'll take care of the kids for a while. Not to worry. I'll bring them back. Friends. You call us friends. Thunder's shadow roared, but his voice seemed to have gone unheard. Seeming as though Little 11 had disappeared, he scoffed. Out of all the techniques you could have used, you had to use Abyssal Dome. Do you plan to keep me locked up here until you get back? Abyssal Dome was a secret technique Little 11 had developed to keep Fong Tian's CI and Thunder's shadow confined in one space. It worked to a certain extent against Fong Tian's CI, but it worked too well against Thunder's shadow. The last time Little 11 used it on Thunder's shadow, the latter could not come out until he started begging. Seeing this secret technique again just poured salt into his wounds. Thankfully, crack. After a few minutes had passed, a crack started to form at the top of the dome. It slowly became like a spider web, spreading out. Not wasting a single second, Thunder's shadow rushed out, crashing his head against the weak spot, causing the whole thing to collapse. The sight before him came as no surprise. It was Fong Tian's CI, who was already waiting with folded arms. The two stared at each other in silence for a while. It was Thunder's shadow who took the initiative to speak. Why did you not catch them when you were just loitering around? Fong Tian's CI simply looked at the direction where the twins and Little 11 had run off to. He shook his head and sighed, just let them be. The thing those two took is something that was meant for Little 11 in the first place. If you're so worried, we could just go and follow them in secret. Thunder's shadow scoffed and then asked, but they might leave the restricted zone, you know? Aren't we supposed to keep an eye on Little 11 and ensure that he does not leave? After being with him for so long, we both know that he had no desire to cause harm to any of us. In the first place, this restricted zone is more of keeping the others out than keeping him in. It's fine. I'm actually more interested to see what they plan on doing with that orb. Besides, weren't you the one who tried to persuade him to go out to play? Fong Tian's CI sighed as he mounted on top of Thunder's shadow, as if it were natural. Thunder's shadow knew about the artifact. However, he felt it to be strange. There was no need for Little 11 to leave the restricted zone to use it, much less bring the children along with him. He wanted to ask Fong Tian's CI about his guess as to why this was the case. However, seeing Fong Tian's CI having no intent of explaining, Thunder's shadow just followed along and started moving. The moment he took his first step, space was split and a void crack appeared. The two, Panther and Human, soon entered. Little 11 was quick to bring Yang Ji and Yang Su out of the restricted zone. It was as if nothing hindered him anymore. Instead of bringing them in any other direction, he brought them to where the twins had supposedly trapped Fong Tian's CI. The array that had been established from the array plate had already been broken through. There was a huge hole at the top, which was slowly closing up. When Yang Ji saw the initial destruction, his heart had dropped. If his array plate got destroyed, who knew what kind of punishment awaited him? His spirit only got lifted after he realized that the array plate had a self-repairing function. Little 11 was quick to point at the array as he said, "Hurry up and keep your toy." Yang Ji and Yang Su looked at him in wonder. They had not seen him in such a hurry before. It was certainly a rare sight to see. They did as they were told. The array token was fished out, allowing for easy access into and through the array. These two quickly went back into the core of the array and shut it down. When the array disappeared with the two children exposed to the outside world, Little 11 immediately appeared beside them. He moved his arm to wrap them in his shoulders, and they soon disappeared. On the group, where they had stood, a small text was carved into the ground, heading to the world tree. Marshall Peak, Chapter 6013, Glimpses. In front of Yang Ji and Yang Su's eyes, space seemed to warp. From what they knew, it was not so much the application of space principles but something far more profound. It was not that they moved through the void. Rather, space itself seemed to have folded, and they arrived at a large open area. This large open area was not an unfamiliar place. They have been here before. Typically, if they wished to travel to distant worlds, their father would bring them here first. As per their memories, there was a gigantic tree at the center of the area. On its branches were what seemed to be fruits. With their current mastery over the Tao of space and the Tao of time, they could vaguely feel that these fruits were far from ordinary. They seemed to have an explicit connection to some kind of distant place. Little 11 walked up to the large tree and asked while displaying the black orb in his hand. "Old tree, long time no see." The old tree, which was withered, frail and aged, had seemed to have its life completely turned around. Since its vitality was linked to the universe worlds connected to it, once Yang Kai started repairing the damages caused by the Black Ink clan, the world tree had gotten a new lease in life. Not as lethargic as before, the old tree responded, a little wary, "I don't think that we've met for quite a long time. I believe the last time was establishing an alternative route to transport to me without using my clones. What is it this time?" Little 11, Fang Tianxi and Thunder's Shadow had visited the world tree before. While Fang Tianxi and Thunder's Shadow seeked it out to find an alternative to reach the Ninth Order, Little 11 was different. He wanted to find a way to transport others to the world tree without needing Yang Kai to ferry them around. This alternative method had some requirements, namely, a third party without a world tree clone would be able to use it. He also did not want the world tree to be able to constantly spy on them through this connection. While Fang Tianxi and Thunder's Shadow found no luck in cracking through the Ninth Order barrier, Little 11 had made great strides. It was just that he needed some sacrifices from the world tree. In short, he needed parts from the world tree. The world tree was initially unwilling to participate in this. After all, it had no real relationship with Little 11. In fact, they should have bad blood against each other. However, with Yang Kai, Fang Tianxi and Thunder's Shadow's encouragement, it eventually relented. It understood that Yang Kai was going to leave eventually, and a method to move around through connected universe worlds would be invaluable for others, especially those close to him. Knowing that this would benefit its savior, and knowing that it still had the discretion of who to send and where, the world tree eventually caved. Little did the world tree know, Little 11 at that time was a complete beginner at artifact refining and arrays. Little 11 definitely had help, and he progressed very quickly thanks to that. However, the amount of parts the world tree had to sacrifice would make even a grown man weep. Seeing this boy again, who treated his own body as mere ingredients, the world tree could not help but be wary. It was just instinctual at this point. "I know you don't really like me. I understand that we haven't gotten along on the best of terms. But, I do need your help in this. I need to get to where that Heaven's Order girl is. I'm also bringing these two kids along with me." Little 11 said and pushed the twins beside him to the front. The world tree looked at the twins and recognized them. He asked, curious, "These two are Yang Kai's children, are they not? Why are you bringing them all the way here? You're even going as far as to bring them so far out. Although they are divine spirits, they are not strong enough to go out there just yet." Little 11 took out the black orb and held it up high for the world tree. "They were the ones who brought this to me. So, I believe that they have the right to see what lies beyond. Besides, these kids will most likely get agitated if I take what they have passed on to me and just disappear." The world tree initially could not tell what that orb was at first sight. It had to stare for at least a couple of seconds to understand what it was. This orb was like the antithesis of light. It would absorb all the light around it. It could feel a faint connection to this orb. It was similar to the artifact Little 11 wanted to refine. Just that this was not an artifact for transportation. The world tree could sense that one of its clones was inside, but the connection was really faint. It was as though there was something profound blocking all connections into whatever was inside the orb. The world tree pondered over it for a moment and its eyes widened with shock. It could not help but ask, "Are you certain you want to go through with this? There may be no return. What's more, you want to bring 2 innocent children along with you. What if something goes wrong?" Little 11 added, "That's why I'm bringing them to her, right? Anyways, I don't think they visited her before. It'll be fine. Yang Kai had already given me his word." The world tree, not having heard about this from Yang Kai, doubted little 11's words. It closed its eyes for a moment before opening them up again. "All right. I've just asked. Yang Kai has given me his word that everything will be fine. If so, then I'll allow you passage to the chaotic dead territory," the world tree said and tried to sense nearby universe worlds. When it spotted one, it gave a perplexed look. "You're fortunate that the person you are seeking is in a universe world at the moment," the world tree added, thinking that it was strange for the chaotic dead territory to have a universe world inside of it. The other closest one would take a few days to reach the edge of the chaotic dead territory. "Fortunate, huh?" Little 11 muttered as he looked at those 2 children in front of him. It was obvious that they were lost as to what was going on. However, explaining it all now would ruin the surprise. "Ha," the world tree sighed and waved a branch. A portal soon opened behind the trio. However, before they turned, the world tree tossed out 3 seedlings, 1 to each person. It added, "None of us can afford it if something were to go wrong. Take these just in case." Little 11 bowed. He noticed that the twins were quite proactive in this regard, and they also followed him to bow. They took the seedlings with both hands and walked away. As they drifted a distance, and the portal started to close, another opened up behind theirs. Chapter 60:14, Chaotic Dead Territory. For Yang Ji and Yang Su, the whole thing had been a blur. One moment, they were in the restricted zone, the next, they were meeting with the world tree, and finally, a place where the skies were devoid of anything. If anything, the twins found the place called Chaotic Dead Territory to be frightening. They had never heard of a place where there were no celestial bodies, except for the thing under their feet. This place felt no different to an abandoned land. Worst, there were powerful and bright yellow and blue flashes in the sky. It was only thanks to little 11's presence that they could remain calm. It was also fortunate for them that within 5 minutes of travel, they already spotted a small hut. Its exterior was completely plain, as though the owner had no conscious thoughts about luxury and only enjoyed the simplicities of life. Except for a simple garden, and a table and a few chairs set up outside, there was nothing else. A woman could be seen tending to her garden, seeming to be unconcerned about the flashes in the sky. She looked young and had a graceful appearance. She was a beauty, certainly, but in the eyes of Yang Ji and Yang Su, who had so many world-destroying beauties as mothers, she would not be considered to be anything that special. Other than her appearance, the twins could sense that her cultivation was unfathomable. They could not tell her cultivation realm, but they knew that this one woman was stronger than any of their mothers. They immediately knew this woman must be the Heaven's Order girl little 11 was referring to. She was such a powerful woman, yet, the moment they approached, they could clearly see her stop whatever she was doing to go up to them and bowed. The twins' immediate reaction was to look at little 11. After all, they had never met this woman before and would not deserve such honors. However, when they saw little 11's fierce reaction of shaking his head, they got even more confused. That was until Zhang Ruoshi greeted, "Young master, young mistress, I welcome you two to my humble abode. I believe this is the first time we are meeting. I'm Zhang Ruoshi, your father's maid. To what do I owe the pleasure of your visit?" The twins looked at each other and glared at little 11, as though questioning, "Like I know?" Little 11 gave a light cough and quickly took out the orb. He showed it to Zhang Ruoshi and stated, "We are here for this." Zhang Ruoshi's eyes seemed to shine with a perturbed glimmer as she looked at the 2 young children in front of her. She checked their cultivation and was astonished. In them hide a ton of secrets that were more than meets the eye. These two were divine spirits, but were already equivalent to Tao Source Realm Masters. If they were monster beasts, they would be regarded as 11th order monster beasts. Furthermore, these two both had divine spirit sources, and not just ordinary divine spirit sources. They both had sources that seemed to be greater than the ancestral level, which should have been impossible. It had to be noted that Yang Kai's ancestral dragon source was from a dragon that had reached the pinnacle of known cultivation before the world creation realm was achieved by him. For these two to have sources that were greater than that meant only one thing: their existence was on par with her Heaven's Order bloodline. In other words, when she was still at her peak, her Heaven's Order bloodline would have no suppressive effects on them at all. It was frightening to know that these two were merely around 12. Still, it might be reasonable, as these two were the result of a union between a 9th order phoenix and a world creation realm dragon, a never-seen-before combination. Although Zhang Ruoxi could roughly gauge how strong they were, she could not really say that these kids fell into any of the normal categories in terms of cultivation realms. The strangest thing about these two was that their cultivation did not over-rely on their natural-born divine spirit source. It was some other technique that was too complex for her to grasp. The one thing she knew was that there was a harmonious link between the twins, whereby both basically have the same aura. Still, for what little 11 wants to do, Zhang Ruoxi still felt that bringing along two children only around the Tao Source realm would be too dangerous. She wanted to warn him, but, before she could do so, the flashes in the sky ceased and two figures rushed towards them. Naturally, these two figures were Sun's burning light and Moon's serene glimmer. They had come down after their round had ended. Moon's serene glimmer had a beam on her face while Sun's burning light was downcast, obviously highlighting who had won. These two had naturally sensed the visitors when they had arrived, especially the one which they attested. Still, seeing that there were two kids here, they held back their ire. Especially since the two kids had even taken a few steps back once they had arrived. To be fair, Yang Ji and Yang Su did not take a step back because the two had imposing appearances. It was more to do with their unconstrained aura that seemed to be constantly lashing out in the air. If it was not for that, they would be more than willing to befriend these other two kids. You two are scaring them. Try restraining your aura some more. If not, best to just merge with me so that you can remain here. Zhang Ruoxi said as she sighed. Although they had been working hard on controlling their powers, Sun's burning light and Moon's serene glimmer still could not fully do so on their own at all times. Ah! Sun's burning light and Moon's serene glimmer exclaimed as though this thought had finally hit them. To be fair, they hardly had guests, and of the few, most would bear with it. If they were fearful, they would try their best to hide it. The duo tried their best to contain as much of their power inside of them. Although it was difficult, after so many years of practice and with Zhang Ruoxi's help, they could at least manage to maintain the state for an hour. Once they did so, the two quickly approached the twins. Sun's burning light immediately went to Yang Ji and Moon's serene glimmer to Yang Su. The two of them inspected the one in front of them like they were looking at a rare animal. Naturally, this drew the ire of the twins and they snapped back. Are you done looking? Has no one told you, you ought to respect your seniors? Chapter 60-15, Sun and Moon Marks. Seniors. Moon's serene glimmer and Sun's burning light looked at each other with wide eyes. Their gaze naturally fell on little 11, who had both his hands against his mouth, hiding his smirk. They respectively pulled Yang Ji and Yang Su's ear as they roared. You're the juniors. The aura those two exuded was one in which no question could be asked. They completely dominated the conversation, as they stared daggers at little 11. Initially, the twins tried to struggle, but it was fruitless. The strength difference was just that vast. Worse, their ears really started to hurt. Zhang Ruoxi could not bear this sight anymore and interjected. Enough. Let those two go. They might have been rude, but you two haven't properly presented yourselves as seniors. Moon's serene glimmer and Sun's burning light pouted and they both argued, but, no buts. If you want to be treated as seniors, you must act like seniors. Zhang Ruo, she added as she pulled on both their ears. Moon's serene glimmer and sun's burning light both let go. They put up a struggle as well, but their struggle seemed weak. As though they were just putting on a show of reluctance rather than actually struggling. Yang Ji and Yang Su both rubbed their ears and glared at Moon's serene glimmer and sun's burning light. Meanwhile, Little 11 was just enjoying the show. Truth be told, Little 11 did not hate the two. It was just a natural instinct to dislike them, just like how they disliked him. It had nothing to do with their personality. In fact, if they had to spend 1,000,000 years together, he was certain he would still dislike them. Both Zhang Ruoxi and Little 11 were aware of this. The only ones who most likely had not noticed were Moon's serene glimmer and sun's burning light themselves. It was like how their actions towards Zhang Ruoxi were instinctually so amicable. Zhang Ruoxi would like to lecture the two, but she did not wish to waste any more time. It was best for Little 11 and these two to be separated as soon as possible. Keeping them in the same space was just asking for trouble. They'll be gone soon enough, so don't cause any more trouble. They are here for the profound source gate. Zhang Ruoxi placated. The profound source gate. Moon's serene glimmer and sun's burning light both questioned as they turned to Little 11, who was holding the orb in hand. They both showed looks of disgust at the idea. As for Yang Ji and Yang Su, they both tilted their heads. This was the first time they were hearing about this. Yang Su looked at her brother, but he could only shrug his shoulders and point to Little 11. Little 11 walked forward and explained to the two. Let me explain. Your father had helped me seal my home inside of this orb. I describe it as home, since that's where I'm from. But, things are not that simple. Before I met your father, I was a monster who could not control my powers. I was consumed by it. Right now, most of my powers are basically being sealed inside of my home. I wish to regain some of my powers, and for that, I would need your help. Little 11 explained in the most concise way he could think of. The twins looked at each other, confused. After all, why would he need them out of everyone? Surely, their father would be able to help. As if he had seen through their thoughts, Little 11 continued, We've tried already, your father and I have entered before. But, it did not work. My powers were not there. It was scared away by your father. We've tried it a few times before, with different people. I've even tried going back with those two. Little 11 pointed to the two other children who still had their ears gripped. Overall, we have tried those that are powerful enough to not get corrupted by my powers. It is too risky to take anyone else. But, you two have a special constitution that would prevent you from getting corrupted by my powers. Your power can run away. Yang Ji and Yang Su had never heard of such an absurd thing before. Nevertheless, since it was their Uncle 11 saying it, it must be true. Still, it was hard to believe. The twins soon heard a woman interject. It's not confirmed that you two will not get corrupted. It's only a guess. Zhang Ruoxi added. She was opposed to this plan. She believed it was too risky. Moon's serene glimmer and sun's burning light finally had their ears released as they added, exactly. There is no telling what might happen if you two go in. You shouldn't bring them in. Little 11 shook his head. I know this is risky, but I cannot go in by myself. I have a high chance of being corrupted. Without these two, I can't think of any other candidate that can join me. Right now, they would not be deemed as a threat. If we wait any longer, when they reach the open heaven realm, it might be too late. So, this is the only time. Besides, this is the only time where their mothers are away. Little 11 wanted to add that in but refrained from doing so. Saying that would only serve to have Zhang Ruoxi more adamant on refusing to cooperate. Zhang Ruoxi proposed, there is no need to do it now. We can wait till they are older. Their cultivation has not even reached the Emperor realm. We can wait till then. Little 11 remained adamant, there would be no difference between now and later. They cannot be corrupted by black ink strength. This is a fact. If you don't believe me, let those two test them. Zhang Ruoxi hesitated for a moment, but as though curiosity got the better of Moon's serene glimmer and Sun's burning light, they just went up to the twins. They both forcibly grabbed the other's hand and laid down their sun mark and moon mark. Moon's serene glimmer and Sun's burning light felt strange. This was the first time that they felt their marks only needed to be placed on different individuals. Typically, a person would require a pair of marks to fully utilize its powers. However, Yang Ji and Yang Su only needed one mark each. Yang Ji had the sun mark while Yang Su had the moon mark. With one mark on each child, they already seem complete. Chapter 60:16, Preparations complete. Moon's serene glimmer and Sun's burning light looked at each other, confused. This has certainly never happened before. With the marks on them, Moon's serene glimmer and Sun's burning light realized the intricacies of their powers. Though all of their heritage could be said to have originated from the primordial light, these two were slightly different. They definitely had the identity of being divine spirits, and their connection to the primordial light, along with connection to Moon's serene glimmer and Sun's burning light, were unquestionable. However, their existence was at the same time out of the sphere of influence of the primordial light. In other words, the twins could obtain the sun and moon marks due to their connection. However, sun and moon marks would have no real influence on them. Their existence has in essence exceeded the marks, and their cultivation would not grow or improve from the marks. There was no bloodline to purity, nor divine spirit source to strengthen. In fact, the sun and moon marks were to the twins no different from just tools. It might really be the case where the black ink strength could not affect them, since even power close to the primordial light did not affect them. Naturally, for Moon's serene glimmer and Sun's burning light, their minds had never developed to go so deep. It was just like Little 11 had said, they tested the twins and they had instinctively felt the two to be incorruptible. After all, they could not influence these two, how could black ink strength possibly do so? They refused to accept it. Moon's serene glimmer and Sun's burning light looked at each other and gave a nod. They acted like the great seniors they were, yes, very powerful. About to reach our level. Yes, about to reach our level. Little 11 had to open his lips to help Zhang Ruoxi confirm. After all, if these two started acting, it would take an eternity to get things done. So, they won't be influenced by black ink strength, right? Yeah. Won't. The two answered simultaneously. Little 11 turned to Zhang Ruoxi and added, "There you have it. All three of us have basically reached the same conclusion. I understand that you are worried for them, but I can assure you that they will be absolutely safe. I can even swear to heaven." Zhang Ruoxi sighed and relented. She believed that if there was really something to worry about, Yang Kai would have done something beforehand. These were his two children, after all. He must have a certain level of confidence in this plan to allow the situation to evolve to this. All right. I understand. So, we just have to prepare as usual, right? Zhang Ruoxi said as she used her hand to signal to Moon's serene glimmer and Sun's burning light to get ready. The two split away and appeared behind Zhang Ruoxi before they left. Since this was not the first time they've tried to do this, they were pretty familiar with the procedure. Previously, besides Yang Kai, others like Fang Tianxi and Thunder Shadow had tried to go in with Little 11. Naturally, they had a world tree clone inside of their small universe to protect themselves before they attempted this. Zhang Ruoxi had led the way, and Little 11 had led the twins to follow along. While walking, Little 11 explained to them, later, inside of the profound source gate, you will need to stick close to me. Never wander too far away. It'll be pitch black inside, and the other me might attack us. Other you? Yang Ji asked. Yes, you can think of him as my evil twin brother. You can sort of say that all the bad things I did was because of him, but I would still like to claim responsibility for my failure to stop him. Little 11 said with a heavy heart. If Mu was here, she would definitely say that it was not his fault. However, it was a fact that his own inability to control his powers had led to so many years of tragedy. Uncle, then what would you like to do with your twin brother? This time, it was Yang Su that asked. Well, we were originally one. I wish to be able to get back to that state. Little 11 replied. So, you're getting remarried to your brother? Yang Su asked with a twinkle in her eye. Cough. Little 11 scratched his head and tried his best to come up with an easy-to-understand response. No. No, merging would be the more accurate term. In the past, I could not control my powers and it ran amok. It has essentially become another person. So, I'm just trying to take back control over my powers. When inside, you will see me trying to absorb it. It will resist, maybe attack, maybe try to flood into me to erase my consciousness. I would need you to protect me. Can you do that for me? The twins responded in unison. Little 11 further elaborated on what they needed to do while inside, and the twins listened so attentively that their tutors would be envious. The lecture took quite a while until they reached an open area with clear arrays on the ground. In the middle was a dent with markings around it and spreading out from it. Mountains, rivers, trees, stones, structures all seemed to be in harmony as a complex network of nested arrays were abound. Although it was not something viewable from the ground, the whole universe world had in fact been made into an array. The purpose was twofold, to prevent this universe world from breaking apart while moon's serene glimmer and sun's burning light played, and to prevent any hazards from escaping if something were to go wrong. In fact, the reason why this whole venture had been done in the chaotic dead territory was to limit the risk of another outbreak of black ink strength. After all, moon's serene glimmer and sun's burning light were here. Even if they could not ultimately stop black ink strength from spreading, they would be able to buy enough time for Yang Kai to come and secure the area. Chapter 60-17, Descend into the Orb. Little 11 looked around in remembrance, while the twins stared at the patterns on the ground and structures. If they were to describe their feelings towards this array, it would be overbearing. Even their own home and the restricted zone did not have such dense array patterns. The weight of everything seemed to really hit them at this moment, as they felt the invisible pressure of the expectation from what they were about to do. After all, words to describe were incomparable from first-hand experience in going up on stage. The amount of effort it took to build this stage was incalculable. For arrays, every detail had to be taken note of, and these were nested arrays. Though the twins did not know the whole universe world had been made into an array, just from seeing the distant mountains and rivers having such intricate patterns, they now knew how critical this was. Unconsciously, their hands slowly moved to hold each other. Little 11 took out the orb as though displaying it. He pointed to the dent in the middle and started to explain. Before I place it there, do note that your safety is of utmost importance. If something awful happens, past the point of what you feel is safe, retreat. It was at this time Zhang Ruoshi moved towards them with 2 space rings. As though continuing from where Little 11 left off, these are 2 space rings that are vital. Do put them on and make sure you do not lose them under any circumstances. Inside are yin and yang crystals. Blue crystals for yin and yellow crystals for yang. There is also a token in each ring. Break it to immediately leave the place. Yang Ji and Yang Su accepted the ring with both hands. They used their divine sense to check through the contents and were astonished to find mountains upon mountains of blue and yellow crystals. There were other items like pills and artifacts as well, but the second most eye-catching thing inside the ring was definitely the token with a return written on it. Compared to the rest, this token had an overt aura of someone familiar. Someone who the twins often joked as Grandmaster Trouble, Ma Fan. The twins looked at each other, and without a word, they swapped rings. They each compared what they got and nodded before putting the ring on. Once they wore it, the band of the ring seemed to tighten as to perfectly fit their fingers. Yang Ji looked at Little 11 and asked, Uncle 11, why don't you also get a space ring? Little 11 chuckled and explained how he had gone on this trip so many times that he had already prepared what he needed. That they should not worry about him. Zhang Ruoshi just shook her head and proceeded to instruct. Before you go in, let me brief you on another artifact you need to take note of. Zhang Ruoshi took out something that seemed to look like a lantern. However, the artifact was not fueled with charcoal. Rather, it required the use of blue and yellow crystals. From what the twins could see, the area it lit up was considerable enough, around 100-meter radius. The rate of consumption was also not too fast, with them needing to replace the crystals inside every 4 hours or so. Zhang Ruoshi continued to explain about each artifact in detail within the ring, about the other use of the crystals, as though this was the only way she could soothe her worries. Nevertheless, the time had come and nothing else needed to be said. That's about everything. You understand everything, right? Zhang Ruoshi asked, to which the twins replied with a firm nod. Naturally, Zhang Ruoshi knew that with their cultivation, everything that was said were all remembered. She just could not help herself from asking. Little 11 stepped in and signaled for the twins to come closer. He was already standing on the circular platform with a dent in it. Okay. I think we've already gone through everything. Yang Ji, Yang Su, come here and stand within this circle. Knowing there was nothing else she could do, Zhang Ruoshi sighed and took a few steps back. Meanwhile, the twins followed their uncle's instructions and stepped into the same circular platform as him. Once they were within it, Little 11 asked in confirmation. Ready? N. The twins held each other's hand as they gave a firm nod. Little 11 soon placed the orb in the dent and the whole universe world seemed to tremble. The patterns all around them started glowing, and the structure beneath their feet began to drop down. The whole circular area had begun to sink into the ground. When Yang Ji and Yang Su looked at their surroundings in astonishment, they saw the whole mountains and rivers start to glow with countless mysterious patterns being lit up. Finally, their eyes laid on the three not in the circle, who waved their hands for a farewell. They could see Zhang Ruoshi being reluctant. As for Moon's serene glimmer and Sun's burning light, who had been playful this whole time, they wore solemn expressions. That was the last scene they saw of the outside world as the circular platform beneath their feet quickened in its descent. Over the course of the next few seconds, the hole above their heads, leading to the sky, got as small as an apple. Eventually, even the sky could not be seen anymore as the exit got covered, with the only light source being the glowing patterns of the array of the walls and floor. They could even hear the sounds of what seemed to be multiple gates above them being closed, with this sound being continuously played and getting closer. At some point, Little 11 spoke up. Maybe due to his own emotions, or maybe due to seeing how the kids were so tense that they did not speak. I have to thank you too for this. Honestly, I doubt any other person could accompany me on this journey. For the two of you, you need not worry too much. I'll handle everything. Even though Little 11 said such words, the twins were not fools. If he could truly handle everything, then what were they here for? They obviously had a special role in the grand scheme of things. They were just worried they would mess up. Yang Su, the more tactful one, was the first one to answer with a nod. And Yang Ji also gave a nod as a follow-up. Not too long, the walls and everything seemed to start to get brighter, and in a flash, the whole space they were in had changed. Sullivan, I feel like I've dragged the prep work for too long. I can't help but feel like they need this much prep work done though. Well, in the next chapter, we'll be inside the profound source gate. Chapter 60:18, Try Touching. The next moment Yang Ji and Yang Su opened their eyes, they were already in an empty space with a gate in front of them. The empty space was completely white. It was not painted white, but rather, glowing white. Even without explanation, Yang Ji and Yang Su could feel the warm and mighty energy emitted from their feet. Meanwhile, the white sky was merely a reflection of the ground. In fact, They believed the reason why the orb looked so dark from the outside was because all kinds of energy could not escape from the orb and was trapped inside by this reflective sky. As for the gate, it was larger than any other gate they had seen before and tightly sealed. It was carved with intricate patterns, and every one of them seemed to be the essence of numerous grand Taos. Although Yang Ji and Yang Su did not know much about the Tao of artifact refining, they could nevertheless tell that this gate was not something humans created. It perfectly resonated with heaven and earth, as though it had been birthed along with the universe. Little 11 proceeded to approach the gate and the twins followed. Before anything else, Little 11 instructed them to touch the gate first. When they did, memories of the past flooded their minds, terrible memories. For Yang Ji, he remembered the time when he got scolded by his mother for catching him not studying seriously. The spanking that followed was not one he wished to remember. He could already feel his butt turn red. For Yang Su, she remembered the time when she caught her brother saying he wanted to be like their father, and have his own harem. She beat him up afterwards and their relationship was on thin ice for a while. Memories continued to replay, and the twins all made sad expressions. Little 11, who was checking up on the changes, simply waited. Over time, the two children broke free on their own without needing his help. He gave a nod as though this had been expected. Making contact with black ink strength would normally lead to humans being corrupted. Divine spirits are naturally more resistant to it. Just the surface of the profound source gate is hard to make contact with for most humans. Little 11 touched the gate and swept his fingers over it. There seemed to be small dark dust particles on his fingers, which he licked. These particles were the escaped black ink strength from when he opened the gate previously. In general, black ink strength would be eliminated by the surrounding white space within the orb, as yin and yang energies were constantly being exuded. However, since this was from Mo's source, it took a lot more time to purify. What was left on the door was black ink strength trying to retreat back into the profound source gate but could not do so. It had been so long that only dust-like particles were left of them. Did either of you feel anything change in your knowledge sea? Both shook their heads with Yang Ji explaining first. Uncle 11, all we experienced was recalling some bad memories. I don't think I feel anything different with my knowledge sea, I'm the same with Big Brother. Yang Su continued and asked, are we supposed to feel something? I guess it is different from person to person. Your father, when he was weaker, and a few others, reported that they would feel as if their knowledge sea and small universe were slowly being dyed black and get out of their control. Dark memories of the past would flash by and they relieved it while slowly losing themselves. For you too, I did expect it to have some effect but the extent was questionable. If you two couldn't handle it, we might as well call this whole thing off. Little 11 said, a little impressed that these two were completely fine after all that. What did you two experience? Just a nightmare, Yang Ji stated, not wanting to delve much deeper into the topic. I did not see much. Yang Su answered straightforwardly, with eyes that did not know the word deceit. Little 11 gave a knowing nod of approval and said, well, if it affected you so little, then we might as well just enter directly. Upon those words he placed his hand on the gate and started to push. The world seemed to tremble as the seemingly immovable gate doors started to vibrate. The dust on the gate also seemed to come alive and they drifted more fervently towards the center. When a slit had just opened up, what seemed to be a large black blade immediately shot out. The twins could barely react, with their eyes only seeing a blurry shadow quickly approaching Little 11. As for Little 11, he had already predicted this would happen. He swiftly removed his hands from the gate and retreated to the side. The blade passed by him, narrowly snipping off a part of his fringe. As though the blade had eyes, it knew that it had missed its target. Instead of retreating back to the slit, it became more aggressive and branched out into 3 sharp abyssal black spear-like weapons. These 3 black spears immediately pointed themselves towards whoever was present. In this case, the twins were now also in its crosshair. Little 11's eyes narrowed and he swiftly took out a token. He was reluctant to use it now, but he seemed to have no choice. It was clear the children would not be able to dodge this attack on their own. Injecting his chi into the token, the whole world trembled. The sky now had array patterns all over it, with the intensity of the light from the ground becoming exponentially more blinding. "Close your eyes." Little 11 roared as the spears raced across the space between them. Yang Ji and Yang Su immediately reacted by closing their own eyes. Though frightened, they trusted their uncle's words. The spears that approached them initially seemed to sizzle due to the surrounding light. But soon, a bright flash engulfed the world, turning everything into white. No matter how dark an object was, the light was so strong that all manner of darkness was eradicated for that brief moment. The spears lost their structural integrity and they started to crack. Those web-like cracks spread and reached the trunk of those branched-out spears, even affecting past whatever it was behind the gate. Soon, those parts furthest from the door started to break down into dust as they scattered. However, with the strong light still in the surroundings, they broke down further as if nothing was left. Yang Ji and Yang Su, who managed to protect their eyes from that flash, could clearly hear someone screaming. However, it was not from any of them. The scream was from behind the gate. The scream was of great anguish, filled with rage and reluctance. The next moment, they could hear something slamming against the gate, but the gate did not seem to be able to close. The thing behind the gate obviously wanted to prevent any more light from outside to enter. However, the slit in the gate still persisted despite all the effort it gave. Chapter 60-19, The Surprise Behind the Profound Source Gate. Despite the screaming backdrop, Yang Ji and Yang Su felt a comfortable sensation all over their body. It felt as though the air around them was caressing them in a warm embrace. Soon enough, this warm sensation faded and the screams behind the door also slowly mellowed out. When silence returned, without any instructions, they both slowly opened one eye to check on the situation. Seeing how everything had calmed down, Yang Su sighed in relief while Yang Ji went to check on his sister. "Don't let your guard down. The enemy is still there," Little 11 warned. Though, he knew Mo well enough that it was fine to take a breather at this point. After all, that child would never want to do something that could potentially harm it. Nevertheless, better safe than sorry. This was the first time Little 11 had to use the primordial flash to defend against Mo. All previous attempts were always with experts who knew of Mo's strength firsthand. They were on guard before they even tried to open the gate, so it was unnecessary to go as far as to use the primordial flash. Little 11 naturally would prefer not to use the primordial flash if possible, since it did take up mountain piles of 9th order yin and yang element materials. Even with moon's serene glimmer and sun's burning light, such an amount would take time to accumulate. Currently, it could at most be fired 2 more times. Still, Little 11 was a little surprised by this sudden attack. This was the first Mo had been so aggressive. Normally, once the gate opens up, Mo would not attack. Rather, Mo tended to be more cautious when dealing with any newcomers. The last time Yang Kai was here with Little 11, Mo literally hid some corner of the space behind the profound source gate. Even for Yang Kai, the space behind this gate was too large to explore, with only darkness in sight and his limited divine sense. Even if he wanted to find Mo, how could he be certain that Mo would not just hide in another location once it sensed him approaching? For Mo, it was like a fish swimming in water, while for others, it was like walking in a quagmire. For Yang Kai, he did not feel like he could spend so much time on a wild goose chase. Not after he had already spent more than a decade searching without any fruitful result. Even the profound source gate was only a gate to this unknown space. It did not contain this space itself. Even after refining it and studying it, all Yang Kai could do was open and close the gate. In fact, for all its grandeur and mystery, Yang Kai truly believes that was the sole purpose of the profound source gate, to keep whatever was in this other world from getting out to their world. All Yang Kai managed to do after so long was to ensure that nothing would leak out of the gate under his control, and open it for Little 11's goals. That being said, when it was others that ventured deeper into the profound source gate with little 11, Mo would be open to attacking them. After all, it knew who it could pick a fight against and who it needed to avoid. Nevertheless, with their preparations, these attacks could be shrugged off. Unfortunately, the environment inside was not exactly friendly to the others. Regardless of the preparation, prolonged exposure to this space seems to corrupt them in one form or another. Without exception, all would have to leave this space before a year had passed. This was regardless of them being divine spirits or humans. The three of them waited for a moment for things to settle. Yang Ji and Yang Su followed little 11's words and stayed alert. Fortunately, nothing else really happened after a few breaths had passed. Seems like we are in the clear now. Mo should be avoiding being close to the gate at this point in time, which is the perfect opportunity to fully open the gate. Little 11 said as he once more stepped closer to the profound source gate. This time, to prevent any incidents, he directly stood in front of the gap and pushed the gate open. Rumble once again, the world-trembling tremor spread. As little 11 had said, nothing truly happened as he was pushing the gate open. Even when the gap was now too large for him to push any further, nothing else occurred. It was truly anticlimactic. However, little 11's next words sparked curiosity within all its listeners. What is going on? Hearing those words, the twins could not help but look over his arms. Behind the gate, illuminated by the light, they saw a unique scene that they had not expected. In fact, even Yang Kai would not have predicted this scene to be in front of them. The furthest depths of the gate was completely dark. As long as no light touched that location, it was completely dark by the abyss. This stood true to little 11's explanation of the place to the twins. However, what laid closer were the things that interested them. They were plants. Actual plants. However, these were not the typical plants that they could find elsewhere. The plants were pretty much all of the same color of blackish blue or blackish purple. It was only with the light that their outline and slightly different coloration could be spotted. Otherwise, everything would be uniform black. Uncle 11, didn't you say that the whole space behind the gate is just an empty space void of anything? Yang Ji could not help but ask. Despite this being a pressing, reasonable question, little 11 would also like to know what the hell was going on. This was not here the last time. Something must have changed, little 11 now hesitated. This was not something he thought was possible. Chapter 60-20, Strange Flower. This is impossible. How did something like this possibly appear? Little 11 started to question everything, recalling all the past expeditions inside. However, nothing came up. These had truly just appeared out of thin air. Without being able to contain himself, little 11 rushed into the profound source gate and directly went to pick one of the flowers. The moment he touched one, a familiar feeling washed over him. There was no need for someone else to explain it to him. He already knew what these were. So, that's what it is, little 11 murmured, which did not go unnoticed by the twins. Still in front of the gate, Yang Ji questioned, Uncle 11, did you figure something out? Little 11 gave a slow nod and explained. This is all made using black ink strength. But, it is at the same time also not black ink strength. Yang Su shook her head at this contrary answer. She asked for more clarity. So, what is it? Little 11 picked out a flower and moved back to the twin. The moment he crossed the gate, he could see the flower gradually losing its original form. It was apparent that the closer he got to the light outside, the more the flower seemed to wither. This is made using black ink strength, to create another life. Little 11 turned around and pointed at the ground behind the gate. In essence, this is no different from black ink strength. But, it exists separately from Mo, as though it is another entity. This is not much different from the black ink clansmen in your history lessons. As you can see, because of the primordial flash, the part directly in front of the gate does not have any of these plants. It is only at the periphery, with the gate being opened up, that we can see these plants. Yang Ji and Yang Su cutely bent their heads forward a little to get a better look at the flowers. They were certainly dark and strange looking, but at the same time, quite cool as well. Their shape was no different from the ones that could be found outside. They were not all homogeneous, with some variations between them. At the same time, their placement was random, as though it was an actual flower field. Yang Ji could not hold back his curiosity and asked, "Uncle 11, can I hold that for a moment?" Little 11 hesitated for a moment but relented. After all, they were still safe here. "Okay. Just be careful. If anything goes wrong, make sure to shout out for help." Little 11 passed the withering flower to Yang Ji and cautiously watched. The boy took it with both hands, trying to get a feel of its texture. Even when it touched his skin, he did not have the same back memories flood back into him again. He saw that his sister was also curious, so he handed it over to her. When she felt it all over, she could not help but comment, "It really feels like a flower. The stem is tougher, the petals are softer and smoother. Just that, it's a bit colder, yeah. But, I guess it's colder because there is no sun inside." Yang Ji replied with a tilt of his head. Meanwhile, Little 11 questioned, "Huh? The black ink strength is not affecting them at all? What is going on?" Although Little 11 expected things to be fine, he was still shocked to see how the black ink strength from the flower had no effect on them. He questioned if it was due to the flower already withering, but that did not make sense as even the remnant black ink strength outside the gate had affected them. The only way to test this out is for them to go in and touch the flowers inside. Little 11 quickly shook his head. In fact, due to these major changes behind the primordial source gate, he believed it to be wise for them to retreat first. Since it was to just get a cursory check of the situation, and not really to find Mo, Yang Kai was the best candidate to do it. The father should make sure it's safe for his kids, after all. Little 11 mused, and was about to open his mouth when something shocking happened. The withering flowers suddenly began to expand, like a final desperate move. Moving along with it were the flowers behind the gate. A torrent of black shot out from behind the gate, while the withering flower quickly tried to stretch back to the gate. Unbeknownst to Little 11, it was at the instant, when the withering flower expanded, that black ink strength began to affect Yang Su. The black ink strength this time was definitely more potent than the first time she had made contact with it. However, the effects on her were more muted as well. It just caused her to be disoriented this time. Nevertheless, this disorientation was enough. If she was still in perfect condition, she would have instinctively thrown the flower away from her. However, with her hands still held onto it, the expansion of black ink strength naturally got wrapped around her fingers as it sought to escape. As though having learned the lesson from the previous attack, the black torrent moved faster than before. It would not give Little 11 the chance to use the primordial flash again. Before primordial flash could activate, the black torrent made contact with the outstretched, withered flower and started to pull back. This time, with Yang Su with it, hands stuck. There was not even a scream from her as she got silently pulled closer into the gate. She did not even feel her feet being forced to be dragged against the ground. Not even the two arms that wrapped around her waist were felt. Yang Ji had reacted quickly to grab onto his sister. Unfortunately, his meager strength was not enough to pull her free. In fact, he had made his own situation worse as he got rapidly pulled in as well. By the time there was a bright flash, the two children were gone, with Little 11 cursing how the situation had gotten drastically worse. "Sullivan, guys, any feedback so far? Draggy? Want more action? Want more world building? It's okay as is." Chapter 6021, Released. Darkness soon envelopes his eyes as Yang Ji could only see the faint light behind him disappear. It was no longer a matter of going back at this point. All he wished for was his sister's safety. In the pitch-black darkness, there was no point looking around and relying on his eyes. He started to close his eyes and used his divine sense to grasp his surroundings. The most important thing right now was to avoid making contact with Black Ink's strength, lest he too got caught up like Yang Su. If he did, he might loosen his grip and truly lose his sister in this forsaken darkness. His divine sense spread out like a tide. Unlike the outside world, this place seems to suppress it. He could feel his divine sense being encroached upon and get pushed back. In fact, there was a constant tingling sensation, but thankfully not much else. Unbeknownst to him earlier, a net had been formed around them. A net that kept them from escaping. As for the surroundings past the net, there were unusual mountains and rivers. Supposed trees and grass were also in abundance, with flowers and fruits scattered about. As for the limits of where his divine sense could reach, the rivers were the denotation of the boundary. The prohibitive and encroaching sensation got infinitely stronger the moment his divine sense got close to these rivers. He could even feel the dangers of the waters himself. He focused on the scene ahead, and frighteningly enough, the plants in front of them seemed to warp themselves to pull them forward. It was as if they were made of some kind of slimy substance. They would disfigure and pull from the front, and once Yang Ji and Yang Su got past them, they would return to their original forms. It was through this method that their momentum quickened the deeper they went. Yang Ji began to frown, and he immediately tapped into his space ring. We need to quickly escape. The next instant, 2 crystals of blue and orange came out. Yang Ji firmly grasped onto them with both hands, and the mark behind his palm started to glow. A bright flash immediately enveloped the whole area, scorching off all the Black Ink's strength around him. Trees, grass, even the soil, none were spared. With him at the center, there was even a massive pit below. Naturally, the he and Yang Su had been freed from their constraints as well. Ops. Yang Ji quickly grabbed a hold of Yang Su before she completely fell into the crater below. He felt it unnerving to fall into the crater, so he decided to just stay in mid-air with her in his arms. Thankfully, the effects of Black Ink's strength did not linger on her for long, as Yang Su soon regained consciousness. In fact, she was immediately confused as she suddenly felt warm arms under her but nothing in sight. She questioned if her eyelids were opened as she tried to open them, to only find that the scene before her was genuinely pitch black. "Brother, are you here?" she asked, a little unnerved. "Yeah. Start using your divine sense. No point relying on our eyes here," Yang Ji said with a sigh. Yang Su did as she was advised to see a strange scene around her. She could already make sense of what had happened from fragments of her memories. Even the crater below was something she deduced her brother had created. What made the scene strange was the crater underneath them reforming itself, as though the whole ground was alive. However, a more thorough investigation of her surroundings was halted by her brother. "Since you're fine, can you get up on your own?" Yang Ji asked, with his arms already being lowered. But, I'm still a little dizzy," Yang Su complained as she took advantage of this opportunity to wrap her arms around his neck and playfully held on. "Just get off me already." Yang Ji nagged as he completely took his arms off her. Yet, she clung onto him using even her legs. "Seriously. Just get off me already. We're in danger right now, and Uncle 11 is no longer here with us," Yang Ji persisted to say. "Well, we are not in that big of a danger." Yang Su shook her head and explained. "If you are able to make that crater, that means that whatever they had given us is extremely effective here. We don't exactly have an unlimited amount, you know? And, we don't really know what might happen here." Yang Ji pointed out, believing they should remain cautious. "I guess you're right. But, you know, I don't think Black Ink's strength will affect us that much if we get more exposed to it," Yang Su said, and continued to give an account of her experience. "I don't know why, but I did feel that the effects are weakening the more I get exposed to it." "Then, do you want to stay here longer to try out your theory?" Yang Ji said, believing that they should have enough resources to last long enough to test this out. Well, I guess it would be safer to head back to the exit for dash." Before Yang Su could finish speaking, she frowned, and Yang Ji had already moved. Yang Ji tried to tear open a void crack, but he could not do so. The best he could do was fly off, away from this place. After all, just underneath them, the whole ground was quaking. What seemed to be sharp spikes seemed to be forming, ready to strike at them. If he did not escape at this time, then when would he? As expected, those spikes launched at him and his sister, but they were clearly still tethered to the ground with a thin string, connecting the two. They were frighteningly fast, moving quicker than them. Without the ability to tear through space, they were truly just sitting ducks here. Chapter 6022, World Change. Arg. I can't tear through space here. The space principles are strange. They aren't the same. Yang Ji cursed as he tried to gain some distance from the black spikes. For the twins, they had no small number of adventures with their family to different universe worlds and small universes. However, such places all have the same world principles within them. The world principles here were too different from the outside world. In fact, mastery over the certain principles outside need not necessarily mean one would be capable of manipulating principles inside this place. Once Yang Su heard what he said, she was quick to react. Still on her brother, she took out another pair of crystals and caused another explosion. Everything around them turned into a white flash once more, and the spike chasing after them disintegrated into white. Then again, since this has happened once, the twins were certain this would happen again. Even if they had mountains of crystals, if they kept this up, eventually they would run out. The best was for them to retreat back outside. However, would this strange place allow them to? The world, seeming to have acknowledged that such means were too minor to handle the children, began to change tactics. The landscape itself started to shift, with mountains and rivers bending and twisting. The landmass below them started to rise in one direction. Their form no longer seemed solid, changing to something more fluid. Rivers and earth mixed into one, indistinguishable from each other. They raised to form a tsunami, wishing to engulf the two. The twins were naturally alarmed by this. Yang Ji and Yang Su both braced for the incoming attack. Without speaking, Yang Ji took out an array plate while Yang Su took out more crystals. With a little bit of qi inserted into the array plate, it began to spin and 8 flags shot out. They each covered a cardinal and ordinal direction. A translucent sphere of around 9 meters in radius formed, enveloping the twins. Meanwhile, Yang Su was prepared to launch another purifying light once the tsunami got close enough. However, before they did anything else, the whole tsunami seemed to freeze in place and a voice came from above, at its crest. The voice was neither booming nor threatening. It was more calm and collected. Stop. We do not wish to fight. Yang Ji and Yang Su naturally looked up to see a few figures gathered at the crest. These figures certainly did not seem human. They were humanoid, but certainly not humans. Some had more arms, some had longer limbs, some even had carapaces as skin. Regardless, there was a particular figure that stood out amongst the rest. This figure definitely emitted more pressure than the rest. In terms of his aura alone, Yang Su and Yang Ji were certain they could not best him. That was just how overwhelming his aura was. Isn't he in the Emperor realm? No, maybe the Dao Seal realm? Yang Ji and Yang Su both thought. After all, they would be able to tell a person's cultivation if they were weaker than them. Anyone stronger had to be above the Dao Source realm. However, this person's aura was not overwhelming to the point of reaching the open heaven realm. Then again, who knows if this figure was suppressing his cultivation? From afar, the figure held out his fist, as an indication for his men to stop moving. He knew that if the weak were to get involved in this, their deaths would be fruitless. Such a time had long passed when the weak were used as useless cannon fodder. Now, they served a greater purpose. Furthermore, he was personally confident in his own strength, which would be able to suppress the two children. Thus, he went down alone. From the crest of the tsunami, he leaped down and stopped directly in front of the twins. Naturally, they both had their guards up, with Yang Su already prepared to unleash purifying light. This light used to haunt his armies in the past. Yet now, it was just a reminiscent scene. He repeated his words. "We are not looking to fight against you. Lay down your arms." Naturally, how could Yang Ji and Yang Su possibly comply? If they did, they would be helpless chickens. Instead, their grips tightened on the objects they were holding. Seeing this, the figure sighed and added, "I see that there is no helping your need for caution. In that case, I just ask that you do not unleash purifying light here. I am Mo Nai, and I believe you are the children of Yang Kai." Once the twins heard his name, they reeled back. Of course they would. This was the Black Ink clansman, the royal lord, their father had praised numerous times in the past. Though they were enemies, there was a sense of respect for each other as soldiers on the battlefield. Their father had highlighted how out of all the royal lords, no, Black Ink clansman, Mo Nai was special in his eyes. He was the only one with wit, cunningness, and bravery. Every one of their battles were always fights inches away from death. How, like their father, Mo Nai had climbed through the ranks of originally being a territory lord to pseudo-royal lord to an actual royal lord. How he was the first and only to accomplish such a feat, though enemies, they might actually share more similarities than differences. It was just unfortunate that they never had a moment of peace to really get to know one another. Other than crossing blades, possibly, that exchange of drinks at No Return Pass marked their only time to get to know one another. The twins naturally heard of his eventual fate. It made it all the stranger how Mo Nai was currently here, still alive. Furthermore, he knew who they were. They questioned their ears if they heard wrongly. But, his next words confirmed that this was reality. "Young kids, the battle against your world and the Black Ink clan has ceased for thousands of years. Why have you come to our land?" Mo Nai questioned. It was not in an overbearing manner or anything. Just an actual question that showcased his curiosity. Yang Ji and Yang Su hesitated to explain. After all, the reason why they were here had something to do with their Uncle 11. They did not know if sharing this information with the enemy would be a detriment to the overall cause. Seeing how the children were not speaking up, Mo Nai just shrugged and moved on from the topic. Although he did want to know, at this point, it was not truly necessary. These children would not really amount to much in a battle, and if anyone stronger crosses the gate, he would be alerted of it. Currently, no such thing had occurred, so he was assured they did not exactly come with hostile intentions either. If anything, he already had a faint guess as the Holy One's other half was detected at the gate. To show his intentions first for them to let down their guard, he confessed. "Nothing good will come of starting a war again, much less doing harm to the children of Yang Kai. Your father is basically the best guarantor you have, so no need to be so wary." Yang Ji and Yang Su thought for a moment, and realized this to be reasonable. However, Yang Su realized the contradiction. She got off her brother and moved in front of him, directly questioning, "Then, why did you kidnap us?" You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.